Hey guys, what's up? So today I want to talk about spiritual leadership in the home, and I'm doing a class at my church, and I thought I would share with you guys first and go through the first piece of what we'll be talking about. So I have a little syllabus. We're using the text "Called to Lead" by John MacArthur, and the reason we're doing that is because he organizes principles of leadership, skills of leadership really in a really well organized fashion. And so we're using that to go through. We won't be talking about that right now, but we'll talk about the summary real quick. So, as men, we're called by God to lead in the family. But even if we know what we want our godly family to look like, how do we bring everyone on board? In this course, we'll be covering principles of godly leadership. But to make sure this isn't just all academic, the end goal will be each one of us will be developing a vision for family vision in the class. And we'll be doing that together and then making plans for the effective execution of that vision. All right, so I want to talk about today, right now, real briefly, I want to talk about class objectives because I think these are objectives for every guy, right? So the goal is developing principles of leadership to influence and transform our families into God-honoring family cultures. And so in the first session, we talk about that a little bit, and I might jump over there in a sec, but here's what you should expect to come out of the class with: a clearer view of what life and family look like in the next year, a list of personal and practical things you'll have to overcome to grow in holiness, personal holiness, and a core group of guys who will help you grow in that holiness. Also, a plan for how to get there. And this plan is in practical terms. And so, what I'm encouraging guys to do is go through and review, create it on the first day, create that plan on the first day, and then go through it. Okay. Yeah. And then build on it throughout the course. All right. So, let's get into the fun stuff. So class one, we want to review the goals and expectations. We review the syllabus, but here's where the conversation gets interesting. Discuss summary from the syllabus. That's the first thing we'll do. Assumed goal for men. What is that assumed goal? Leading your family from your own personal holiness. So why is that legitimate? So we are all sinners, but we're called by God to become holy through personal holiness. So we're all sinners, but we're called to lead. If we're called to lead, we're put in positions, and nobody's perfect, and we have people in positions of leadership. You're not perfect, you are called. And so the point is that we influence others as husbands of wives, we influence our wives as parents, as fathers of children, boys and girls, as friends. And so if you look at the last Warrior Poet Journal article, I think it's called Finding Quality Steel. And it's important that there's a brotherhood, men who can sharpen each other, and and you want to find that hard steel, and then you want to sharpen yourself against it, and they sharpen themselves against you because you're hard steel too. There's a responsibility in that to become hard steel. And so that's the first assumption we have in this class. Now let's look at the goal of the course: develop principles of leadership to influence and transform our families into God-honoring family cultures. Now, why did I choose the word culture? Because a culture reflects the beliefs reflects beliefs in the following ways. So it reflects values. Each culture reflects values, biblical principles that we claim to hold. And so let me take one step back. Cultures are like, all right, we have kind of an American culture, which is really I'm not calling it a blend of cultures, because these days it's more like a clash of cultures. It's more like different cultures coming together and saying, oh, I want this, and therefore everyone should have this, along with the restrictions and the taxes and everything. And then other cultures are saying, leave us alone, let us make our own decisions at the local level. And I think that's closer to what makes the most sense. You get smaller than that, and you're talking about, you're going from regions, if we make this spatial, right, rather than, nation. Anyway, you get down to state, you get down to county, you get down to city, maybe You get down to town, neighborhood, and then family. And then church is in there somewhere too, depending on, do you go to a mega church? That's going to be at the city level. You belong to a smaller church that might be more of a neighborhood type level. You belong to a particular faith tradition. Our family we go into a bigger town to go to church because it fits our faith tradition. All right. So, but the smallest unit, until you get down to the individual, is the family. And so, why culture? Well, we have a family culture too, which is a subculture of a subculture of a subculture of a culture. And so, values, what are the values of our family? They're probably values that belong to our culture that are further refined and applied to our subculture, our family. And so, biblical principles we claim to hold are our values. We have to know those and understand those. We have traditions that are a part of our culture. These are time structured activities that bring values to life, that usher in life stages for children, taking your son camping, giving him his first gun, whatever, right? And then memorializing events in the past. So like Christmas, we memorialize an event in the past. So we have values, we have traditions, we have process. So how values get lived out, that's process, right? And so how they get lived out, process, you could call this a tradition or a process, but having one night a week where you get into the word with your family, reading times at night. If you decide just to read books together instead of watching Netflix or whatever, you decide to build skills, build imagination. You take things into your own hands and you stop doing what culture tells you to do. And then even etiquette. How do we treat each other around the house according to our values? Are we the kind of family that's like, like really formal with each other? There's not a whole lot of that these days. Usually we err on the other side pretty egregiously, and we treat each other like crap because we're like, we're at home, we can let our guard down, and we're just like rude and gross and stuff like that. We don't clean up after ourselves. We just we don't respect each other in the home because we're like, this is home. We don't have to do this. We don't stand on ceremony in our home. Well, maybe we should stand on just a little bit of ceremony in our home. Kids should not be talking back to the parents. Kids should not be yelling at each other, treating each other with disrespect. These are things we decide based on our view of holiness. And so that's the first question I wrote down is why culture? I feel like that's something where people will want to ask. The second question is why you? Why you? Why you as the husband? And so the bottom line is you have the authority. And this is amazing, right? So we look at the world, we feel powerless. There's so much we can't control, so much we can't affect. But guess what? We have an area that God says, no, you are supposed to control this. You are supposed to influence this. And so now we have this family, this unit, this structure where it's like our little commando team. It's like a little special team, right? And we have the authority to organize around these values. And with the help of your wife toward holiness. And I want to talk more about that later, this idea of with the help of your wife, because I think we have so many weird ideas about how we work with our wife in the world today, in American culture today, in all around the world. We have weird ideas about that. And we need to have a God honoring structure, even with how we deal with our wives, a God honoring way to think about that. So that's the first thing. Why you? Well, you have the authority. God's given you the authority. 1 Peter 1:15 through 16. But as he who called you is holy, that's not the right one. All right. For Matthew 20, no, that's the Great Commission. It is going to be Ephesians 5:22 through 24, of course. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. This is just, and there are other verses too, 1 Corinthians 11:3, and probably Colossians 3:18 through 19 about submission. Wives submitting. What are they submitting to? Why are they submitting? Are you worth submitting to? And so getting these things straight. And yeah, we're not perfect. We don't have everything figured out. We don't. We're called. We're not special. We're not special in the sense that we come with prepackaged with the ability to do all these righteous things, and we never sin. We make bad decisions. We need the help of our wives. We should not neglect. We don't unilaterally make these decisions. We're here to apply biblical principles to our families. We don't decide what we do. The word decides that. We apply it. From our wife's perspective, we do decide. From the government's perspective, we do decide. They don't decide how we live our lives, how we love our family. They don't decide that. They can put some limits on abuse, which I think is probably some room for. They don't decide exactly how we live, how we execute at the family level. All right. Also, why you? Because if you're in this authority, godly men don't abdicate. We don't push responsibility to others when the responsibility belongs to us. We don't do that. We don't dilly-dally. We make holiness the goal, and then we follow hard after holiness. That's what we do. And so the question really is then, what does God say? What does he want from my family? And how do we figure that out? And that's what we're going to be looking at. Oh, and how do we, more than anything, how do we execute on that? And so again, we'll be using MacArthur's, what is it? Called to Lead by MacArthur, and the principles described therein. We'll be discussing those, and I can't wait to talk to you guys next time. Let's see here. Any questions? No, nobody's watching. Cool. All right. All right. I'll talk to you guys next time.